But one of the things I'm going to be talking about at the event is how poets can kind of help set a rhetorical edge for the church.
Well, good morning and welcome to Chinook Podcast. We are gathered here in Grand Prairie, Alberta, and on Chinook Podcast, we are praying and working for a wind of the Holy Spirit to move in Western Canada, expecting that God will use us for His glory, for the upbuilding of His church and the growth of His kingdom. So welcome to, we're happy to...
He said sorry. He's a Canadian.
Yeah.
You know what?
Terrible.
Not even a minute in and he's apologizing.
Am I in the middle of a group of Canadians?
I think you might be.
I just lost where I was going with that. But anyway, welcome, Joffre.
Thank you. Pleased to be here.
We have Joffre Swait on the podcast with us.
Hello, everybody. Here in person. Unbelievable.
Here in person. Awesome.
Yeah.
Really good.
That's awesome. So we should probably start with our tradition.
Yeah,
our
let's start with book reviews.
Yes. What do you have, Pastor Nathan?
Okay, well, I'm going to start with, I've mentioned this in a former podcast episode, but Out of the Ashes by Anthony Eslin. I'm really enjoying this book, and I'm just going to read a paragraph or so just to get you thinking about worship and the importance of worship. We are servile for mass entertainment when we could be free with our hearts and ourselves for the worship of God, which truly builds up a human community rather than just herding people in an aggregate of many thousands who do not know each other and whose only common bond is that they prefer a certain style of uniform. But why would we care to make our churches beautiful when what goes on in them is slipshod and is not felt to be of even temporal consequence, let alone eternal? We do nothing in the week that is more significant than serve God by prayer. That is a fact. We have forgotten it. Our hearts skip a beat when someone gives us a surprise ticket to the baseball game. Those same hearts plod along at their usual sluggish tempo when we dress for church, if we dress for church at all. So we end up with stadiums that will not last 20 years before the owners of the ball club demand new ones. Chartres Cathedral has been standing for 800 years. Think of it, everyone. Preachers, parishioners, choristers, artists. So I like his contrast between the temporality of the world that we're living in, and he contrasts that constantly with things that have substance and beauty. Anyway,
And permanence.
Yeah.
permanence, yes.
Yeah, that's quite something. If you if you look with modernist eyes at the what you call the Dark Ages, and you think about how many cathedrals were built in the
Dark Ages.
Oh yeah, right.
So speaking of building cathedrals, one of the things that I just learned recently was how they would draw out the blueprints. They would cast a plaster board on the floor of the cathedral, and then the architect would take his tools and he would inscribe the pattern on this plaster, and then the masons would come over and they'd be like, oh, I need to make this arch or whatever. And so then they would take measurements off of that and then go back to their block of stone, scribe it in there, and then start chiseling. They would draw the blueprints on the floor, basically. And then when they needed to do the blueprint for the next section, they would just take like a trowel and they'd wipe the plaster flat and then scribe the next bit in. Yeah, it's very cool. And you can get very precise, and if the guy has a question about the measurements, you can just walk over and look at them.
Yeah. That is very cool.
Yeah.
It's fun to think that a generational project like that would have semi-permanent blueprints.
Yes, and they've actually found some of these, in the basements or underneath in a subfloor somewhere, just tucked away. They found some of them.
Interesting.
Wow.
Okay, well, I have a book in my hand that I remember reading probably 20 years ago. It's a New Verse translation of Beowulf by Seamus Heaney.
And it's a pretty epic book.
It is a pretty epic book.
Yes.
There's a on the cover. There's a human head completely engulfed in chainmail.
As most human heads should be.
That's pretty awesome. So, anyways, Beowulf is one of the really old stories of the West. Mm-hmm. and it's fascinating to dip into that time period and to see the this was written sometime when the advent of Christianity into that area was really quite recent.
Very, yes.
And so it's a fascinating look. It's an epic poem, and it's really worth your time digging through.
Well, I love that particular translation, Haney's translation, has become like a thing in itself.
Right.
Like it really was a great work, like the translation itself, and very deservedly, it's become like this generation's Beowulf.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. So Beowulf, by new verse translation by Seamus Haney.
So, funny story about Beowulf. My last summer when we went to my father-in-law's cabin for a week, my son and I were riding in my car because we didn't have enough room in the family car for all of our stuff and all of our people. So Walt, he's 8 right now.
Okay.
And we listened to your reading of Beowulf.
Nice.
The whole way there. And I put it on and I said, "You want to listen to Beowulf?" He's like, "Oh, I don't know, Dad." I'm like, "Oh, it's got like fighting." He's like, "It's got fighting and soldiers."
That's like a Princess Bride show.
So we got into it. We were in Hythe, which is about 45 minutes down the road, and he turns to me. He's like, "Dad, this is great."
That's actually Doug Wilson's translation, which is another good one. I wasn't sure what to expect going into it, and it's a lot more plain spoken than Haney's, but but he does a great job with rhythms and with very direct language. It's also a fun read. Yeah, I'm glad he enjoyed it.
Oh, he actually wants to listen to it.
So in order to do something like that, you have to get a real grasp of old English language.
Yeah.
Which is really another language. It's different than
is,
ours. It's a different character.
It's a beast, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and one of my favorite things about that sort of English poetry, like old English poetry, and is something I think we should try to carry forward more actively into modern poetry, are kennings. Like the classic one people bring up are like the Whale Road.
Right.
It's like you name a thing, something else, but it's clear what it is. Like the Whale Road is obviously the sea, the ocean, the paths our ships take. So that's something that Anglo-Saxon poetry was really good at.
Yes.
Yeah. So and that's a fun thing to read in Beowulf. The Helliond is another. Has anyone here read the Helliond?
No.
So I think it's Saxon, but it's German from like Germany,
right?
From just before the Beowulf time. But it's a retell. It's actually the sort of thing that if it weren't so old, like modern missionaries would eat up, sometimes for not great reasons, because it's a contextualizing of the gospel.
Oh, there you go.
For Saxons, for Germans. So it's so Jesus goes up to the hill fort of Jerusalem, and but everything is Saxonized. And it's actually really cool. As long as you don't take it as scripture, it's a great retelling.
Nice.
The Helliond, it's called.
Nice.
Brad, you've got some other classic literature there.
I do. So the other day, I was a bit tired. I'd been working on my pickup truck, and I was, I wanted something to read, and I didn't want to scroll on my phone. So I pick up a classic work. It's called Tintin.
Tintin.
Tintin. I cannot speak highly enough of these things. Tintin is great. First off, the art is quite beautiful. It's detailed where it needs to be, and but it doesn't distract you from the plot. But one of the things I love about these stories is that whenever somebody tells Tintin he can't do a thing, he is convinced in his mind that he is now going to go do it. Yes. Is this a hard thing? Oh, I will find a way. Does he have a plan? No.
Right.
Not at all.
He's just going to put himself in this situation.
Yeah, I'm just throwing myself in, and we'll see what happens. And it works out. Like, there's one story here. He's looking for a lost tribe of headhunter Indians because he needs to figure something out about this artifact that he's chasing down, and he hasn't seen the artifact yet. And I'm like 2/3 of the way through the story, And so he's talking to a fellow, how do I get to this lost Indian tribe in South America? And the guy's like, oh, you can't go up there. The last guy that went up there lost his head 15 years ago. We haven't seen him since. We don't know what happened. And he's like, well, the very next thing he says is, do you think there's anyone who would agree to take me there? Like a marvelous thing. Right. He's a real go-getter. That kind of holy ambition, I think, is perhaps a thing that is instructive. Never be ashamed of the pleasures, the good pleasures of your youth. Return to these old books repeatedly.
The Tintin books are great. I can never decide, though. I mean, the greatest thing about Tintin, I think, is the earnestness, the sincerity he approaches life with. So that probably puts it over the top. But between Asterix and Tintin, from my childhood, I'm not sure which of those are my favorites. But the Tintin books are awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, I learned just about everything I ever learned about Roman army parlance. I learned from Asterix.
Yeah.
I'm
an authority.
I was probably 13 or 14 years old before I realized that parsley was not used as ear protection. I was into my teens before I realized that was an herb that you were supposed to eat.
Wait a second.
Parsley is earplugs. So, what book do you have?
Well, somehow I had forgotten that I would be expected to do this, so I just pulled something out of my backpack. I'm saying that in defense of my choice because it will be it's a bit abstruse, a bit philosophical, but I highly recommend this guy. So Nicolás Gómez Dávila, a Colombian philosopher, writer. Very little of him is available in English, but there is a book called The Authentic Reactionary.
Ooh, wow.
And he writes in aphorisms. So he writes these little sayings. Sometimes it's a sentence, sometimes it's 3 paragraphs. And you read through, like the sequences make sense, but he doesn't feel much of a burden to do all the attaching for you. But clearly, like things are building. And so it actually reminds me of reading like Pascal.
Yeah, nice.
It's very fun. But he's a 20th century guy. He used to call himself a pagan who believes in Christ. And he was, of course, radically anti-communist, described Western civilization as, in his time being part bordello, part dungeon, part circus. So and because he writes aphoristically, he's a lot of fun to read, and it's okay to read him in little spurts. So I'd recommend The Authentic Reactionary.
I gotta check that out.
I'm gonna buy a copy.
The Authentic Reactionary. Give that name again.
Nicolás Gómez Dávila, Davila.
Okay.
Nice.
I actually really love just the style of Pascal. So if
Yes,
it's
me
a similar
too.
style, I'm sure I'll enjoy it.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that aphorisms. I get in so much trouble for those. But all right, so where should we begin?
Well,
Or have we begun?
okay, so the reason why we have Joffre Swait in the studio
Is 'cause he's awesome.
Correct. I mean, let's just stop there.
All right, next week.
Anyway, the specific reason, other than Joffrey being awesome for him being in the studio, is that he's up here to talk to the church a little bit about his mission work that he's doing out of Moscow, Idaho, in Brazil, called Missao, Guanabara.
Right.
And anyway, he's going to be doing a bit of a poetry reading tomorrow night. We're going to do a bit of a fundraiser for him and all that. So anyway, I thought I'd first ask, what is Missao Guanabara? How did this begin?
Yeah.
What's your goals?
Well, what it is, I think the simplest, nutshelliest way to describe it is that it's a media ministry.
Yeah.
And so we produce video courses, books, and we're kind of just getting started. We have a couple of courses out and for Brazilian families. So a lot of, I expect a few people listening to this podcast will be familiar with Huguenot Heritage, which is a ministry to French speakers around the world out of our church as well. We're similar to that. So the Francis and Huguenot Heritage, they focus on Christian leaders and preparing Christian leaders. Our focus is a little more on fathers and families.
Okay.
But with similar sorts of content, but a little more of a turn toward the practical and toward a family audience,
Okay.
and toward leading your family as opposed to, say, leading a church.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's basically what we are. We just we produce media for the Brazilian church. So secretly, I am Brazilian.
Secretly.
I mean, obviously, a lot of people know, but until you know, you don't know, right? So yeah.
Were you native Brazilian? Did you grow up there?
Yeah, I mean, being a native Brazilian is a little bit like being this phrase will be infelicitous, but a Native American or a Native Canadian, right? Like you, there are just so many streams that feed into it.
Exactly.
But yeah, so my dad's Brazilian, my mom's American.
Okay.
And I was born in Brazil, raised kind of back and forth between the two countries. We actually left Brazil for Edmonton, Alberta. So I had 1 year of living in Alberta and becoming an Eskimos and Oilers fan. Someone pointed out to me, by the way, that Edmonton sports haven't won anything since I was here.
89.
Did you do that?
I don't know. Well, but the Oilers can send me an offer.
Move back to town so we can win. Well, the Oilers have come close the last 2 years.
They sure have.
They have. But fallen apart at the last minute.
Yeah, rough. But yeah, so I actually have the Brazilian expression we use to describe kind of at least my part of the family, because I still have relatives down there. We visit, etc. But we dropped in by parachute is the expression, because really there's a sense in which my family was only there for a couple of generations.
Okay.
So I have 3 American grandparents.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but so on the Brazilian side, that my grandfather was American, not a cool dude, left the family, but paid for my dad to be educated at an American school in Brazil.
Okay.
So he actually got a scholarship from the Brazilian government, went up to the States to study, met my mom up here. So 3 American grandparents, but still Brazilian. I say I'm 100% Brazilian, 100% American, and people who don't like it can just go take a flying leap.
Well, there's an awful lot of you, so
yeah, exactly.
200%.
There is 200% of me. Yeah. Just for those who are just watching, I weigh like 350 and I'm 6'9", so I am the size of your favorite NFL left tackle.
Yes, that's awesome. So with this media ministry, would this be providing resources for the Portuguese-speaking audience similar to what Canon Press in their Canon Plus app and some of that stuff is doing in the English?
Yeah,
similar.
It is similar. I mean, so we're not providing, at least not right now, literary and artistic things. We do have a very practical bent of mind, but from a CREC, practical theology out the fingertips, all of Christ for all of life kind of way. And of course, I am a poet, so the content can get poetic, but it's very practically minded. And we don't do political content and that kind of thing, although we encourage that. So like one of the main things that Guanabara has done so far is facilitate for-profit enterprises in Brazil, like Reformed publishing houses, acquiring rights and getting books. They're going to do a better job of that. I'm a capitalist and a free market guy. Right. So those guys have the right motivation if I can get them the books.
Yes.
Right. So helping with translating and that kind of, but putting it out under, and I say putting it out as if we secretly were doing all the work. We're not. They're doing almost all the work, but we facilitate and help make that happen.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
So when you translate Doug into Portuguese, how does it sound? Is he a better poet in Portuguese than in English?
That's hard to do. I don't know. But yeah, he's extremly popular down there. Like him personally, his family books have been bestsellers. In fact, there's one Reformed publishing house that basically exists because of those books. So they do all these other projects, but the Doug Wilson books just finance their whole operation basically. And so they put up stuff on like the 3 Forms of Unity and the Westminster Confession of Faith and all these great resources that effectively they're being funded by Doug Wilson books, which is just to indicate like how popular he is, especially among the Reformed, but broadly evangelicals with his family stuff. And I think that's an experience a lot of people have had, future men and that sort of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Brazilians have been pestering him for years to go down to Brazil.
Yeah.
He had reasons, family reasons, he couldn't travel abroad for a little while. But, that changed. So last year, he was able to go down. I was able to go down with him to an education conference. And it was an absolute blast. It was funny. I actually tried to talk to him about how he was received, and if it was different from when he goes to other conferences.
Right.
Because just there were so many Brazilian families and couples that were just so pleased to see him, and didn't ever think that would really happen. And his books changed their lives, and that's kind of an uncomfortable thing, I think, for Christians to look directly at.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you do with the rock star?
Right. Exactly. But at the same time, it's like, I get it. Like it's, these are things that God really used to transform your life, and you're really grateful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they were expressing all that gratitude, but of course in a very Brazilian way. So it's Doug is a very Idaho man, so he's not particularly emotionally expressive.
Yeah.
But yeah, he loved it, and he did assure me that they weren't the craziest people he'd run into.
He's been up here before, so yeah. Oh, that's excellent. I can imagine the Brazilians being more effusive.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yes.
There was, he had to give out a couple of hugs to some of the dudes.
So next time we go to Presbytery, let's just line up and hug them.
Yeah. So the moderator or the presiding minister, I should say, of our denomination of the CREC is also a Brazilian.
Yes.
Right.
Based in the States, and he's pastored here in the States his whole life, but moved here, I think, when he was 15
Yeah, I think
to
so.
the U.S. But he's a very effusive and emotional person.
Yeah.
And people love that about him. But hugs are going to start catching on the CREC.
They are gonna. Yeah. Well, we were down at the ad hoc meeting of the Canadian Presbytery, and Yuri came, and we were in Banff hanging out for the day, and it just surrounded by this beautiful, majestic scenery. We're sitting on the patio of the Banff Hotel, having a beer, and just looking at these mountains. And listening to him describe the mountains I was looking at was quite fun.
Yeah. He's also a poet, for sure. I don't think he writes poetry.
No.
But one of the things I'm going to be talking about at the event is how poets can kind of help set a rhetorical edge for the church.
Yeah.
Right. And, anyone who's read my poetry or heard me, there are plenty of things that I say in my poetry that really it's better not to say from the pulpit, right? But it sets that edge.
Yeah.
So Yuri, I think, embraces that, right?
Yes.
Like he wants to use colorful language and vivid language and language that creates a response in the emotions and affections.
Yes.
And having Reformed leaders who embrace that part of human rhetoric and just humanity is really refreshing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, because it takes something that we generally relegate to the Pentecostals, and it and it builds Reformed stuff into it, and it's beautiful.
Yeah,
it is
beautiful.
I mean, the classic phrase that we use in the Western Church for affections is order of affections. I mean, we can do things with affections in order. We can still be Reformed, baby.
Yes.
Well, yeah. So one of the debates that I heard in seminary was there was this discussion that was going on in the Reformed world about whether or not preachers should preach to the mind or should preach to the heart.
Yes.
And I think sometimes people pit these things against each other, and there's definitely an important mind element that I think the Reformed have been good on, because Romans 12 says be renewed according to your mind, right? Mm-hmm. But God wants us to love him with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, so preach to it all.
Yes. And I think there are even two ways of conceiving of preaching to it all. One is that you're preaching to all those parts, but I would urge folks to instead be preaching to the whole.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
It is, you know,
Yes.
and Scripture makes those distinctions because we need those reminders.
Yeah.
But really, there's never any preaching to just the mind or just the heart, or this part is for the heart, this part is for the mind. We're always whole beings.
Right.
God made us that way. And so, you know, it's not just that you're hitting all the parts. Like I'm preaching to a man.
Yes.
Right, in all his fullness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, one of the things that started me thinking in that direction was something that my dad wrote in the liner of a Bible that he gave me. Now, he had this Bible in Bible school. It was an old King James with a leather cover, like a really nice onion leaf King James. And in the back, he had written, "If you would capture men's minds, you must paint pictures in their hearts." And I remember thinking to myself at the age of 16 when I got this Bible, "Oh, that's strange." And then I started thinking about it later.
Yeah.
And no, he's actually, wherever he got this quote from, I don't know.
Yeah.
He might have come up with
I
it.
think he came up with it himself.
He might have. It might be an
he did.
original Mike Donovan. I'm not sure. But I've meditated on that idea quite a bit, especially when composing a sermon.
Right.
Because I would not consider myself a skilled rhetorician, so I will compose a text
Yeah.
and then go mostly in line with that text. And that's one thing that, especially when coming to the application parts, they're not really application parts. I don't separate application from interpretation in a strictly neat way,
Right.
because that's not how the whole man is.
No, exactly. I think that when you make, even using the term application, I think is potentially deceptive.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like a how-to list. It's an
Yes.
intellectual version of what to do,
Yep.
right? As opposed to urging,
Yes.
right? You know, there are other ways to motivate, in the old-fashioned sense of the word, people, right? You move people to action.
Yes.
Right, but you don't have to put out a to-do list, which is what I mean. You don't, obviously the best pastors wouldn't do that anyway.
Yeah.
But I think the phrase, the word application, makes us think that way.
It does.
Pushes us toward the modern.
It does push us in that direction. And the thing is, if I explain the text, like preaching is reading the text, explaining the text. Reading the text, explaining the text. It's not actually a complicated thing.
Showing Christ from the text.
Yeah, it's read it, explain it.
Yeah.
Make it understandable to your people. But the thing is, if you, if I come at a sermon, I say, well, I need these people to apply these three things, then I've actually limited their
Yes.
application, as it were,
Yes.
of a thing. So if I say something about, some doctrinal statement that Paul will make, some beautiful thing, like Christ seated in the heavenlies, and I start going on about this, somebody in the pew might be sitting there and be moved to apply this in a way I had never conceived it. And if I narrowly cram too strict an application on them, then they may not ever get to that. Like there are how many ever people sitting in front of me, these all full of the Holy Spirit,
Right.
each living in their own skin,
Yeah.
can find different ways of believing, understanding, knowing.
And I've also interacted with Reformed preachers who reject the idea there should ever be any so-called application, right? Because
Right,
that's the word that's used. And so their sermons are purely, they're just abstruse things
Theological
that never.
treatises.
Yes. Right. And I think the solution is actually not a how-to list or the word application. It's thinking in those holistic ways and truth, beauty, and goodness.
Yeah.
Right. And we always think of truth first. But if your truth is not beautiful,
It's
there's
not true.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And goodness, too. It's the externalization of truth.
Right.
I mean, you look at, we were talking about cathedrals a minute ago.
Right.
A cathedral, you look at the beautiful cathedral, it's also a good cathedral, because you've seen a bad one before. I mean, it had a rainbow flag on it,
Yeah.
right? So these things all come together.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it was something I was reflecting on more closely when I was preaching through Colossians 2, because at the very end, there's this section about do not taste, do not touch, and avoiding that kind of thinking. So I was like, okay, well, I do want to be more practical in my preaching, in the right sense of the word.
Right.
And I do want to focus on things, but I think it was a good opportunity to teach people you know what, there is a bad kind of practical that becomes legalistic. And I don't want to be going through worship services telling people, well, your dress should be 10 inches off the floor or 14 inches off the floor or things like that, right? I want to teach people how to be wise. I want to teach people how to glorify God in this world. And by getting too specific, sometimes you lose the big picture that applies to everybody in the congregation.
And that's one of the beautiful things about the law. God gives principles, and you're supposed to figure out, using wisdom, how to make this work. Like the parapet on the wall is one of my favorite ones. He says in the law, you should have a parapet on your wall. And if somebody falls off your roof and you don't have a parapet, you're liable for them. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, it means I should probably check the brakes on my car once in a while, make sure the pads are thick enough. Now, that's an application that a guy sitting in the pew can make who owns a car.
Right.
Now, his 14-year-old son does not own a car. Right. So his 14-year-old son can make a different application. He can say, well, okay, I need to
check the brakes on my bicycle.
Check the brakes on my bicycle, yeah. And then my 8-year-old boy can sit there and say, well, that pocket knife that Dad gave me, I shouldn't leave it lying around so that my 1-year-old sister can find it, right?
Yeah.
So there's, we're supposed to exercise maturity.
Yeah. And this sort of wisdom actually kind of it connects with, I think, one of the great casualties of Protestants and the Reformed buying into the Enlightenment, a word we never use anymore, which is virtue.
I love that word.
Yeah, there are virtues that we can talk about. You can live virtuously expressing those virtues. Mm-hmm. And that's another, so you have wisdom, then you have these categories of virtue. You can get more granular without getting pedantic or overly because as soon as you start giving instructions, you are tempting people toward weighing their spices.
Right. Here's my little bit of dill.
Right. Yeah.
See, you spoke metaphorically. And I'm picking up what you're putting down.
You got a poetic ear on.
This is what poetry gives us. Yeah. You can speak with metaphor and type and compression. I read that article you shared from Theopolis.
Oh yeah, wasn't that great?
It was.
So Garrett Searcy is a CREC pastor who is a musician and a poet.
Yes, and he used the word compression, speaking about impregnating meaning into a phrase. And with poetry, you can have compression.
Yes.
So you talked about the whale road, right? That's compression.
Or weighing your dill.
Yeah, or weighing your dill. Yeah, compression. You've layered multiple layers of meaning into a very small phrase. And I'm picking up what you're putting down, which is also metaphor.
Sure is. So many images flying around. The imagination is sparking.
Oh,
These
my
guys
head.
better be loving this episode.
Yeah, and if they're not, well, shame on you.
Well, and I think that's the sign of the younger man as well, is you come fresh out of seminary and your sermons tend to be longer because you need to use more words to say something, right?
Yeah.
But as you get older, like I listened to some of Doug's sermons or his ways of saying things, he can punch 3 or 4 paragraphs into a sentence.
Yes.
When you use it and wield it in the right way.
I think a lot of people think of literature and the work of great wordsmiths, including poetry, as flowery and overly complicated. Well, first of all, they've been exposed to bad stuff.
Yeah.
But also, they're not training themselves.
True.
The truth is, poetry in its own way is more efficient.
Yes.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
Wow. If I look at this thing sideways, I see so much more.
Yeah. It's in 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one thing I love about Shakespeare. His compression is just phenomenal. He can, in a phrase, say everything.
Right.
And then he carries on.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and then that's, I think, one of the, when you do in fact say everything in a phrase, when you find that beautiful line, that beautiful expression, it's actually it's one of those things that points to God.
Yes.
Right. But it's not God. The reason I'm saying that is there are things like the heavens declare the glory of God. We can look at the heavens and understand things about God. But if we stare at the heavens and start measuring and diagramming, we stop seeing God, right? You have to look at it kind of indirectly.
Yes.
to see beyond it, right? So when you have this beautiful phrase, you do actually have to move on from it. So that, so Shakespeare moves on. Why? Because if you sit there and stare at it, you'll kill it.
Yeah.
Right. But it was real while it lasted. You saw truth, beauty, or goodness in that moment.
Yeah.
So move on quickly.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
Yeah, enjoy it.
Because the pride of staring at it will kill it too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, there is something about that pride. I mean, I do enjoy a good analysis, but at a certain point, like that can't be everything.
Because you can have a beautiful speaker who takes great pride in the way he says things, and it's dead because there's so much pride.
Yeah. Well, and the thing too is like if I sit there and like I look at poetry and I sit there and I analyze it, right? So I'm sentence diagramming Shakespeare. I'll never get to the good stuff. Like with Richard III, you'll never get to, a horse, my kingdom for a horse. You'll never get there if you sit there and diagram it.
Right.
You have to roll with the flow. You have to enjoy the whole thing.
And there's a great Dickens passage actually connecting two horses where there's this teacher who's teaching these orphans in this very modern, I guess they're not orphans. I think I just said that because it's Dickens.
Everyone's an orphan in Dickens, including the writer.
But he demands of a student, to tell him what a horse is, and he can't, right? And so then he asks one of his model students to define a horse, and this kid starts with the word quadruped, like a horse is a quadruped of such and such a height with eats this and that. Yeah, that's not a horse.
No.
Right, it's the lack of definition was better than saying, "Yep, that's a horse."
Well, this reminds me of an old anecdote about Plato, because he was in his academy one time trying to define a man, and he came up between he and his students, because it was a dialogue between he and his students. They came to a man is a bipedal, featherless bird or something like that, So then Diogenes showed up the next day with a plucked chicken, threw it into the classroom, and said, "Behold your man."
Yeah.
Right? And Diogenes said more with a tortured chicken than because I guarantee you that bird did not enjoy the plucking.
No.
He said more about man in that moment than Plato had the entire day previous.
Kind of going back to the idea of killing things by over-examining them. There's a poem I read often to people just because it delights me so much, by Billy Collins. I assume we're just gonna it's okay to just read someone else's poem.
Go for it.
Go for it.
It's called Introduction to Poetry, because Collins, the former poet laureate, criticized by the poetry establishment for being just too plain spoken and people, but the people loved him. Like he was one of the most popular, which is not saying much, but one of the most popular poet laureates ever, because people could understand his poetry. Imagine that. Anyway, but he taught literature and poetry as well. So this is called Introduction to Poetry, and he's talking about his students. I ask them to take a poem and hold it up to the light like a color slide, or press an ear against its hive. I say, drop a mouse into a poem and watch him probe his way out, or walk inside the poem's room and feel the walls for a light switch. I want them to water ski across the surface of a poem, waving at the author's name on the shore. But all they want to do is tie the poem to a chair with rope and torture a confession out of it. They begin beating it with a hose to find out what it really means.
So this is poetry meets a CIA extraction.
Okay,
you could torture the thing,
What's the name of that?
It's called Introduction to Poetry.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you get like a description, right? Richard III, I've got open in front of me. Right?
Yeah.
He's described as being a hunchback, right? And this is another thing. He talks about, I that am not shaped for sportive tricks.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so he's not shaped for sportive tricks. Okay, so he's something's wrong with him, right? And then he, physically anyway, I that am nor made to court an amorous looking glass. He just called himself ugly.
Right. Yeah. But with so many other tones, right?
He did.
Because one of the things he's doing in that speech is he's comparing himself
Yes.
to his brother, I think it is.
Yeah, he gets to that comparison by the end. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But he's already like, it's not just that he's calling himself ugly. He's talking about the sensual indulgence.
Yes.
And he's not that either because he's ugly.
Yeah, and he's also morally warped. And
Yes.
one of the great things about the opening speech from Richard III is that he acknowledges openly that he is morally warped.
Yeah. He's actually one of the best bad guys in history. I
love him.
Because he just like looks you right in the eye and it's like, yeah, I'm a bad guy.
Yeah, I'm a bad guy. Most bad guys, and here's the thing, most bad guys, including Adolf Hitler, would not say that they are the bad guy.
That's right, yeah.
But I read this speech to my daughters one day because we were discussing poetry, and my oldest, she just lit right up. She was like, "Oh!" So then I got YouTube out and showed them Laurence Olivier's introduction,
Yeah.
which I think is really well played. But yeah, he's like, when you get into it, you're like, this man is morally warped, but in such a way that you can kind of see the when you get later into the play, you see how his descriptions of himself play out.
Yes.
Right. He invents these prophecies to get his one brother killed by his other, and then he winds up with the dead guy's wife. Even though she knows he's warped, he still manages to somehow convince her to marry him. Right? It's like he's the perfect bad guy.
Yeah. And because he is the perfect bad guy, it's actually he's unrelenting and unquestioning. He has no moral anguish or angst, right? Because he's so pure as a bad guy, the moral interest actually comes from the other characters.
Yes.
Right. So when she decides to marry him, like that whole like her
she has the internal
decision,
struggle.
exactly.
Yeah.
Or the scene, the murder scene in the tower with the two assassins.
Right.
That is some of the most compelling because like they are trying to come to terms with killing a defenseless man.
Yeah.
Right. And it's that dialogue is almost like absurdist 20th century theater.
It is.
Right. Like it's just, two characters in a room, and it's Shakespeare, but it's like watching some Dutch play set in a basement, like these criminals trying to.
They're arguing about what, should we do, what's the moral quality of this?
Right.
How does this affect me?
Yeah, and by the way, they are funny, and that scene is also hilarious.
It is
but,
quite.
But yeah, it's morally so loaded because the villain's so pure. Everyone else is of interest.
Yeah, and no, the whole thing, but you can't get there without poetry.
That's right.
Yeah, the whole thing requires this compression, layers of meaning.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the play that is the famous line now is the winter of our discontent.
Yes. May glorious summer by the son of York. Yeah. And you're like, okay, what was he just talking about? He was happier in the fight.
Yeah, right.
He was much happier in the Civil War than in the peace.
Which is, it's funny because he describes himself as not made for sportive tricks. He is a great warrior.
Yes.
So he's not lacking in physical ability.
No.
When he says that.
Yeah. And he actually, he dies in battle. And then when they dug up a car park, and they found his grave.
Yeah, there's a movie about this that I haven't seen yet.
Neither have I, but I read about the excavation.
Yeah,
they found him buried under a parking lot.
I mean, this play is probably a great injustice to the actual man.
Possibly. Well, it does set him up as being worth digging up.
Yeah, that's the truth.
And worth talking about.
Yeah, so I don't really know the story, and Brad may know more, but. Like a housewife, right? It was some random, not academically qualified person became obsessed with finding Richard III, and found him under a city street after working really hard at it.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it was because whoever it was that figured it out, what they did was they went back to the records that we had, and they even took a little bit of information from Shakespeare because he had folk history, and they said, well, if he was buried within a distance of this abbey, I forget the name of the abbey, but it was a certain distance within this abbey in a particular direction. It was east or west, whatever. And they just started looking. They're like, well, he's probably down there somewhere.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah. So then, now you can go to that car park and there's a plaque where his grave was. And I think he's been reinterred. Hopefully in Westminster. That's really where a king should be.
Yeah,
Or in
agreed.
Winchester. But yeah, it's fantastic. But the character lives in our popular imagination
Yes,
because of Shakespeare, because of his poetry.
because of the lyricism. Yeah,
Yeah. Otherwise, he would just be another English king that died in a battle. Probably the largest land battle in England from, yeah. I don't think any battle in the Civil War was as big in terms of numbers of men involved. Like, it was a huge fight. So, but yeah, just a marvelously dramatic life and story that's really brought to the fore by poetry. Same thing that Shakespeare did with Henry V.
yeah.
Right. Shakespeare is the reason why English speakers for the last 400 years have thought that fighting the French is a virtue. I mean, like, that's
You mean that's not something we could just automatically assume?
No, I think this is Shakespeare. Right, and then
It seems like it would be satisfying work,
it would be,
regardless.
Yeah,
But yes.
And here are tennis balls, and,
Yeah.
but the poetry has brought out the history.
Yes.
Even some of our love for classical history, like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony.
Yeah,
How
absolutely.
come these are such compelling characters? Well, I think a large part has to do with Shakespeare. I believe they recently made a movie about Cleopatra.
Yeah, they did.
I haven't seen it because I just don't want a modern take on Cleopatra to spoil the romance of Shakespeare for
Right.
me. But this marvelous image from Antony and Cleopatra. What sport shall we have this day? Right? This is a great line. And of course, he starts with it in the morning. And Shakespeare's setting up Mark Antony as being this man who's been corrupted by Eastern Oriental hedonism.
Right.
And they're gambling in the morning.
Yeah.
Like on a Saturday morning, I'll sometimes quote this to my wife. What sport shall we have today, right? And she just rolls her eyes and it carries on. I'm going to change a diaper. Like, leave me alone.
I do think Cleopatra is good to bring up because of all the classical characters in Shakespeare. I think the one that's most formed our imagination regarding that person is Shakespeare's take on Cleopatra.
Yes.
There's just so much on these other guys that it's not hard to kind of move off of, say, Shakespeare on Julius Caesar.
Right.
We're still informed by Shakespeare on Julius Caesar. But I think when we picture Cleopatra, we picture
His Cleopatra.
Shakespeare's Cleopatra.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's got her goblet of vinegar with her pearl.
Yes.
Yes. We're drinking expensive pearls, like stuff like that.
I learned
That's-
about that from Asterix.
Yes.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, we might have to see if actually that is in Shakespeare. Yeah.
Well, it is.
Okay.
And that's where Asterix gets it from.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, stuff like that. Like this fellow wrote 400 years ago, and he's still informing our imagination
Yeah.
today.
It's incredible. Yeah. I actually had a little run-in with someone a little while back. I was at a book study, and we were studying this theologian, a well-known theologian who was, he'd written this little book about family worship and thinking of the family as a church. And the book we were reading, this minister who was, kind of from the Puritan epoch.
Joel Beakey.
Ayo. I was sort of trying to be a little anonymous, but it was Matthew Henry. It was Matthew Henry. So kind of, it's just Matthew Henry.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Anyway, it's a very thin little book, but he made a big deal. Henry did in his book about dads reading to their kids, reading great literature and reading great literature to their kids. And I made a comment, just kind of working off of that, to this group of men about, hey, men should try to like Shakespeare.
Yes.
Right? They shouldn't look at it and be, it's not for me. They should see it as, I don't think I use this word. If I did, I could maybe that paints the reaction a little bit, but see it as a sort of shortcoming, like it's in me.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't have to be all in anguish about it, but I should try to work to enjoy Shakespeare because all these great men are saying he's great. Right. So let's, and Matthew Henry's saying I should read the classics to my kids. So
This is a classic.
right. And one guy just flew off the handle. He was so angry at me for suggesting that dudes should read Shakespeare. I was like, well, maybe there's something you should look at with this,
Well,
I remember growing up in high school, and so many of my classmates would just get angry when I told them that they should read Shakespeare. They're like, "Oh, Shakespeare is useless. He doesn't make any sense." And,
But if
I
you
just
say-
remember those conversations.
Yeah.
Well, my love with Shakespeare. Now, I normally don't have anything good to say about public school, but today I'm going to. Part of my education was in the government schools.
Yeah.
Pray for me. Anyway, so
I pray for you constantly.
you should. I need it
Without ceasing.
without ceasing. Yeah. Oh Lord, please help with that. Yep. Yeah. So I had an English teacher in grade 9. She was about 4'10", and she's like, "We are going to sit all our desks in a circle and read the parts of Romeo and Juliet." And so the poor kids were struggling through this thing. And at one point she jumps up and she starts waving her hands. "Did you get it? Did you get the joke?" And the whole class is sitting there looking at her like,
There was a joke?
There was a joke?